Let's be honest for a moment. How many of us heard the truth of the gospel and immediately said, "Yes, I believe. I'm fully in"? No doubts, no resistance, probably very few. Most of us went through a process, some longer than others. We heard the truth, but maybe we ignored it. We ignored it, or maybe we questioned it. Maybe we even outright rejected it. And yet, here we are today, firm in the truth that we once resisted. That leads us to an important question. Why do we get frustrated when others don't accept the truth right away? Think about your own journey. How many times did someone share the gospel with you before you actually listened? How long did it take for you to recognize the truth for what it really is? What was it that finally opened your heart to Jesus? We don't always ask ourselves these questions, but they're important because if we're honest, we'll realize that rejection is often just a part of the process. God was patient with you. God was patient with me. And if He was patient with us, why shouldn't we extend that same patience to others? Look at how Jesus handled rejection. He didn't force anyone to believe. He didn't argue with people until they accepted His message. He didn't do that. He simply spoke the truth, loved them, and moved on. When He was rejected, He didn't take it personally. He knew that the truth doesn't always take root immediately. It needs time. Now, here's something we sometimes forget. This doesn't only happen out there in the world, it happens within the church every week. Every church is filled with people at different levels of faith. Some are on fire for God. Some are trying to believe but struggling with doubt. Some hear the sermon every Sunday but are still rejecting certain truths. And that's exactly how the church has always been. Jesus talked about this in the parable of the sower. Some seeds fall on rocky soil, others among thorns, and others on good soil. But what's interesting is that all of them heard the word. That means there are people sitting in church hearing the same message but responding in different ways. And just like we need time to grow, so do they. So instead of getting frustrated when someone in the church doesn't change fast enough, maybe we should ask ourselves, how long did it take me? In what areas of my life am I still growing? Am I showing them the same patience God has shown me? Remember Saul, that man who literally hunted down Christians before becoming Paul, one of the greatest apostles? Imagine if the believers of that time had written him off as a lost cause. But God saw the big picture. Sometimes the person who rejects the truth today may be the one leading others to Christ tomorrow. When we share the truth, whether in a conversation or within the church, our job is not to force anyone to believe, it's to plant seeds. In 1 Corinthians 3:6-7, it says, I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase. So neither he who plants is anything, nor he who waters, but God who gives the increase. Not everyone is at the same stage. Some are hearing the truth for the first time. Some are struggling with it. Some are rejecting it outright, just like we once did. But God is working behind the scenes in ways we cannot always see. So the next time someone rejects the truth, whether outside the church or sitting right next to you inside it, instead of getting discouraged, ask yourself, how many times did I reject the truth before I finally accepted it? Then take a deep breath, show them grace, and trust that God will do the rest. Here's a powerful reflection. We all must be willing to go through rejection. Rejection doesn't feel good and sometimes it's frustrating, but how many rejections are we willing to endure before we reach heaven? And here's an even more challenging question. If we refuse to face rejection for Jesus, are we in a way rejecting him? Jesus said, if the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first. If we avoid rejection at all costs, are we choosing comfort over obedience? Are we walking the path he walked, or are we taking a shortcut that saves us from the pain but keeps us from the true transformation? In the end, rejection is part of the journey. If we follow Jesus, we will inevitably face rejection, but like him, we must keep moving forward with grace, knowing that the truth we share will eventually have its impact, even if it's not immediate.